Beyond Meat, the plant-based revolution that fooled carnivores. In the summer of 2019, something unprecedented happened at fast food restaurants across America. Long lines formed outside McDonald's locations, not for a new burger or seasonal shake, but for something that would have seemed impossible just a decade earlier. A plant-based burger that actually tasted like meat. The PLT, McDonald's take on the classic BLT but with a Beyond Meat patty, was selling out within hours of restocking. Drive-through speakers crackled with orders for fake meat that had somehow convinced die-hard carnivores to question everything they thought they knew about what belonged between two buns. This wasn't just another health food fad relegated to specialty stores and vegan cafes. This was the moment when plant-based meat crossed over from the margins into the mainstream. And at the center of this revolution was a former clean energy executive named Ethan Brown, who had convinced the world that the future of meat didn't require any animals at all. Ethan Brown wasn't the obvious candidate to revolutionize the meat industry. Born in 1971 and raised on a farm in rural Maryland, Brown grew up around livestock and understood the agricultural system from the ground up. After earning his MBA from Columbia, he spent years in the clean energy sector, working on hydrogen fuel cell technology and renewable energy projects. But it was his environmental consciousness, not his agricultural background, that led him to question why humanity continued to rely on such an inefficient system for protein production. Brown had calculated that it took 25 calories of feed to produce just 1 calorie of beef, and that livestock agriculture was responsible for 18% of global greenhouse gas emissions. In 2009, at age 38, Brown made a career pivot that seemed almost absurd to industry observers. He decided to start a company that would eliminate animals from the meat industry entirely, using plants to create products that would be indistinguishable from traditional meat in taste, texture, and cooking behavior. The challenge Brown faced was monumental. Previous attempts at meat alternatives had failed spectacularly in the mainstream market because they tasted like cardboard, had the texture of rubber, and were marketed primarily to vegetarians and vegans who represented less than 5% of the population. Brown's insight was revolutionary in its simplicity. Instead of trying to convert vegans, he would target the 95% of consumers who loved meat, but might be willing to switch if the alternative was identical in every way that mattered to them. Brown founded Beyond Meat in 2009 with a clear mission statement that would guide every decision to create plant-based meat that was better for human health, better for the environment, and better for animals, without asking consumers to sacrifice taste or experience. The company's early days were spent in a small facility in Columbia, Missouri, where Brown and his team began the painstaking process of reverse engineering meat at the molecular level, studying how proteins, fats, and water interacted to create the sensory experience that humans associated with eating animal flesh. The scientific challenge of recreating meat from plants required Brown to assemble a team that looked nothing like a traditional food company. He recruited Dr. Fu-Hung Hsieh and Dr. Harold Huff from the University of Missouri, food scientists who had spent decades studying protein structures and had developed innovative extrusion technology that could align plant proteins to mimic the fibrous structure of animal muscle. The team also included flavor chemists, texture specialists, and even former researchers from major pharmaceutical companies who brought a level of scientific rigor to food development that was unprecedented in the industry. Their breakthrough came from understanding that meat's appeal wasn't just about protein content, but about the complex interaction of proteins, fats, minerals, and water that created specific sensory experiences during cooking and eating. They discovered that pea protein could be processed and aligned to replicate muscle fibers, that beet juice could provide the red color that consumers expected from raw meat, and that coconut oil and cocoa butter could be engineered to provide the fat marbling that created juiciness and flavor release during cooking. Beyond Meat's first major product launch came in 2012 with Beyond Chicken Strips, which were introduced exclusively through Whole Foods Market. The partnership with Whole Foods was crucial because it provided credibility and access to health-conscious consumers who were willing to pay premium prices for innovative food products.
The chicken strips were placed in the refrigerated meat section rather than with frozen vegetarian products, a strategic decision that positioned Beyond Meat as a direct replacement for animal products rather than a specialty health food. Sales exceeded expectations, with many Whole Foods locations reporting that customers were returning specifically to purchase Beyond chicken strips and that the product was attracting consumers who had never previously bought meat alternatives. The success at Whole Foods provided Brown with the proof of concept he needed to attract serious investment, and in 2013, the company raised $13 million in Series A funding led by Kleiner Perkins, with additional investment from Twitter co-founders Biz Stone and Evan Williams, signaling that Beyond Meat was being taken seriously not just as a food company but as a technology platform. The real breakthrough came in 2016 with the launch of the Beyond Burger, a product that represented 4 years of intensive research and development focused specifically on replicating ground beef. The Beyond Burger was revolutionary because it looked, cooked, and tasted remarkably similar to a traditional beef burger, complete with the ability to be served rare or medium rare, and to develop the Maillard reaction browning that created the complex flavors consumers expected from grilled meat. The product's success was immediate and dramatic. Target became the first major retailer to stock the Beyond Burger, and within months the company was struggling to keep up with demand as sales exceeded projections by over 300%. Food industry analysts who had been skeptical of plant-based meat alternatives began paying serious attention when they realized that Beyond Burgers were being purchased primarily by meat eaters rather than vegetarians, indicating that the product had achieved the crossover appeal that had eluded previous meat alternatives for decades. The momentum from the Beyond Burger's success attracted attention from major food service companies and restaurant chains that recognized the potential for plant-based options to attract new customers and differentiate their menus. In 2018, Beyond Meat announced partnerships with TGI Fridays and A&W Canada, marking the company's entry into the quick-service restaurant market. But the real validation came in 2019 when McDonald's announced a limited-time test of the PLT burger in select Canadian locations, followed by similar announcements from KFC for Beyond Fried Chicken and from Subway for Beyond Meatball Marinara subs. These partnerships represented more than just menu additions. They were acknowledgments from the world's largest food service companies that plant-based meat had evolved from a niche product into a significant market category that could drive customer traffic and revenue growth. The financial markets took notice of Beyond Meat's rapid growth and mainstream adoption in spectacular fashion. In May 2019, Beyond Meat went public with one of the most successful IPOs in recent history, with shares priced at $25 and closing the first day of trading at $65, representing a 160% gain that made it the best performing IPO of 2019. The company's market capitalization briefly exceeded that of established food giants like Campbell Soup and Tyson Foods, despite having a fraction of their revenue, indicating that investors viewed Beyond Meat not just as a food company, but as a disruptive technology platform with enormous growth potential. Celebrity investors, including Leonardo DiCaprio, Serena Williams, and Snoop Dogg, became public faces for the brand, while major institutional investors like JP Morgan Chase and Goldman Sachs upgraded their ratings based on the company's ability to create an entirely new food category that appealed to mainstream consumers.
The competitive landscape began shifting rapidly as Beyond Meat's success attracted both startups and established food companies into the plant-based meat space. Impossible Foods, Beyond Meat's primary competitor, received significant media attention for their burger that used genetically engineered heme to create a more meat-like taste and appearance. Traditional meat companies including Tyson Foods, Purdue Farms, and Smithfield Foods launched their own plant-based product lines, while major food manufacturers like Nestle, Unilever, and Kellogg's acquired plant-based meat startups or developed competing products internally. However, Beyond Meat maintained its market leadership through continuous innovation and strategic partnerships, launching Beyond Sausage in 2018, Beyond Beef Ground Meat in 2020, and Beyond Chicken Tenders in 2021, while expanding internationally into markets including Canada, the United Kingdom, Germany, and China. The impact of Beyond Meat's success extended far beyond the company's financial performance or market share. The plant-based meat revolution that Brown initiated fundamentally changed how consumers, restaurants, and food manufacturers thought about protein, sustainability, and the future of food production. Major grocery retailers began dedicating significant shelf space to plant-based alternatives, with chains like Kroger and Safeway creating dedicated plant-based meat sections, rather than relegating these products to specialty health food aisles. Restaurant chains began viewing plant-based options not as accommodations for vegetarian customers, but as mainstream menu items that could attract health-conscious and environmentally aware consumers who still wanted familiar flavors and experiences. Food industry research firms projected that the global plant-based meat market would grow from $4.2 billion in 2020 to over $23 billion by 2027, with Beyond Meat positioned as the category leader in a revolution that would fundamentally reshape how humanity produces and consumes protein. Ethan Brown's vision of eliminating animals from the meat production system had evolved from an environmental crusade into a mainstream consumer movement that proved definitively that the future of meat didn't require any animals at all.